The day Liam was recognized by his wealthy Kingsley family. A long line of luxury cars blocked our village, making it impossible to pass through. When the children from the village entrance came to our house with the good news, Liam was teaching our son Eddie how to write. I knew that Liam would soon reunite with his family and return to City J. As for me, I went to the hills as usual to forage for matsutake. Ms. Warwick, passing by, teased me. "Clara, dear, you're about to go to the city with Mr. Kingsley to live a life of luxury. Why are you still foraging for mushrooms?" Liam told his family to come back the next day to pick him up, saying he wanted to bring 2 people with him. The villagers all sourly remarked that my ancestors must be smiling down on me from heaven. They had completely forgotten that when Liam first arrived here, with no memories and unable to do any farm work, I was the only one willing to care for him like a child. In my previous life, Liam did indeed bring 2 people back to the Kingsley family. But I wasn't one of them. Thinking of this, I just smiled at Ms. Warwick and said, "The matsutake are particularly good this season. The money from selling the mushrooms would be enough for me to leave this place and start a new life elsewhere." Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. When I returned, Evelyn was teaching Eddie French. She said, "You must study hard. Children your age in City J can already speak quite a bit of French." Eddie was learning with great concentration. Evelyn smiled and patted his head. "Eddie has such a quick tongue, unlike." Eddie reached out and hugged Evelyn's waist. "It's all thanks to Aunt Evelyn's teaching. If I were like my mom, only speaking in dialect, I'd be so embarrassed when I go back." Liam, who had been reading, looked up briefly upon hearing this. Afterwards, he unexpectedly showed a warm smile. I had witnessed this scene twice in my life. Evelyn was also a girl from our village. Her father was abusive, and her mother died early. Relatives from City J took her in to study in the city. Later, for some unknown reason, she returned to our village. Once, Eddie was playing carelessly and fell into the water. Evelyn saved him, and I was originally very grateful to her. But ever since she came to our house and met Liam, things gradually became strange. Later, Evelyn started coming to our house frequently, even persuading Liam to take a part-time teaching job at the school. From then on, she always addressed him intimately as Liam. After that, every time I went to deliver lunch, I would see Evelyn sitting next to Liam. He carefully ladled the chicken soup I had simmered all night into Evelyn's bowl. Eddie giggled happily beside them. "Mom, Evelyn loves your cooking the most." I raised this father and son, getting up early and staying up late to forage for matsutake to trade with neighbors for free-range chickens. I couldn't bear to eat a bite myself. And now, they were using it to curry favor with someone else. In my previous life, I had spoken these words out loud. Liam frowned, pursing his thin lips, and bowed slightly to Evelyn in apology. "I'm sorry, Evelyn." My wife was out of line. As if I had disgraced us terribly. Eddie was more direct, "If you don't give it to Evelyn, I won't eat either." Evelyn Payne, acting like the lady of the house, pulled Eddie's shoulder. "Eddie, what have I taught you? You can't speak to your mom like that." Eddie pouted at Evelyn, "I'm sorry." Evelyn shielded Eddie, looking at me without a trace of unease. At that moment, my son and my husband made me feel like a completely abandoned wife. Evelyn Payne was born with a gentle and fair complexion. While I spent my days foraging for matsutake in the hills and working in the fields, exuding a wild energy. After giving birth to Eddie, I was far from the slenderness of a young girl. When they were together, they indeed looked more like a family of 3. Just like in my previous life. When Evelyn went back with them, outsiders never doubted that she wasn't Eddie's mother. Liam noticed me entering the room with my basket and stood up, stepping aside. It was probably the earthy smell from my clothes that had reached his nose again. Seeing the basket full of matsutake mushrooms, he finally showed some guilt. "Why are you still doing such hard work?" he asked. "Now, we have money," he added, his voice trailing off. In my previous life, after he left, I would regularly receive a sum of money. Just enough for my living expenses in the village. It was impossible to even think about going anywhere further. I didn't explain, only saying, "I'm used to it, having nothing else to do." With that, I picked up the needle and thread from the table and began sewing sachets. The herbs to repel mosquitoes would lose their effectiveness in a week. Eddie, seeing me sewing the sachets, showed a slight disdain. "Mom, once we move to the city, there won't be any mosquitoes. You don't need to make these things for us." The Kingsleys had never appreciated anything I gave them. In my previous life, before the black car drove away, I tearfully stuffed many things into Eddie's arms. However, they were all thrown away on the road, not even making it to the village entrance. When Miss Warwick brought them back to me, recognizing my needlework, her eyes were both pitying and mocking. I thought it was Mrs. Kingsley's doing. But when I specially bought a mobile phone in town, thinking I could keep in touch with them, Eddie was always impatient during our video calls. I even saved money and traveled a long way to secretly visit him at his school. He saw me, but he ran to the car, afraid I might call out his name. Seeing that fleeing figure, I finally realized it wasn't that the scent of the sachet had faded, but that his heart had emptied. After that, I never went to find him again, until he came of age. By then, I was worn out from years of hard work. The doctor said I didn't have long to live. I called Liam Kingsley, and after a long silence, he only said, "I'll arrange a hospital for you." But I didn't want to treat the illness. I just wanted to see my son one last time. So I wore my best clothes, used what little savings I had left to get my hair done, and went to his grand coming-of-age party. "Eddie, don't you remember Mummy?" I asked. But he was affectionately arm in arm with Evelyn, looking at me with disgust as he said, "Who are you? Why have you come to ruin my family?" Liam stood by and said nothing. The cunning, selfishness, and ingratitude of the upper class were perfectly embodied in them. At the bustling party, I was like a dark mouse, chased to the street corner, and finally struck down by a speeding lorry. Yet when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day the Kingsley family came to find their lost son. This time, I won't be such a pitiful and pathetic fool again. Faced with Eddie's disdain, I simply said calmly, "I know you don't like it, but I promise to make this for Gina." Eddie was clearly taken aback. Although I could be strict with him at times, I loved him dearly. He pouted, "Gina's not a good girl. She doesn't respect Evelyn at all. Why are you making something for her?" Gina was one of the few children in the village who didn't fawn over Evelyn Payne. As a result, she was often isolated at school. In truth, she had never done anything to disrespect Evelyn. She simply preferred me. She said I smelled nice. Once upon a time, Liam would bury his head in my neck, saying I had a scent of vitality. But later, he chose Evelyn's perfume-laden fragrance instead. What they, father and son, didn't cherish, others naturally would. I calmly continued my needlework. "I'll make things for whoever I want." Eddie was displeased. "You're mean." "I'm going to find Aunt Evelyn. She said she'd take me to town for a fancy dinner and teach me how to use a knife and fork." His eyes darted mischievously. "Mom, you've never had fancy food like that, have you?" Without looking up, I simply replied, "No, I haven't." "Off you go then." In the past, I was always jealous of Evelyn. Whatever she did with Eddie, I would try my best to follow suit. When I gave birth to Eddie, I was on the brink of death. I clutched Liam's hand and said intermittently, "Save the baby." For many years after, I always felt the child was more important than the husband. But in the end, it was Eddie who dealt me the final blow. As Eddie left, constantly looking back, Liam approached me. "Clara, are you upset with me?" he asked. "If you're angry, take it out on me, not the child. We're leaving early tomorrow. Let's not make everyone unhappy." Unhappy? I felt dazed. In my previous life, after they left, my world lost all joy. Now he had the audacity to say, "Let's not make everyone unhappy." That day, just like before, Liam's mother, Mrs. Kingsley, despite her illness, traveled miles to see her long-lost son. But the moment she laid eyes on me standing beside him, she was filled with disgust. She let out a shrill cry, "Monster! Monster! Get away!" I was stunned. I knew I wasn't particularly attractive. And the Kingsley family probably wouldn't approve of me, but I never expected such a reaction. The Kingsleys sighed and looked at Liam. Since you disappeared, her mental state has been unstable. Although Liam hadn't regained his memories, the mother-son bond was evident in his pained expression. What was even more unexpected was how much she liked Evelyn. She affectionately held her hand, saying, "Karina, you've come back." It turned out she had mistaken Evelyn for her deceased daughter. After the Kingsleys left, Liam said to me, "Clara, you saw my mother's condition. She can't handle any stress. Once my mom gets better, I'll bring you back. I won't let Eddie forget you." Using his mother's attitude as an excuse, he added, "I need to take Evelyn with me. Eddie needs someone familiar to look after him. I'm worried he won't adjust otherwise." I waited year after year. They never came back. Later, Liam said, "Clara, I can give you a large sum of money. But you can't be the lady of the Kingsley house." I hysterically lashed out at him, "I can't be, but Evelyn Payne can? Liam, how is her background any different from mine?" Years of resentment finally erupted at that moment. He didn't say a word, just looked at me with pity. But what could I do? Back then, because he had no identity, we couldn't even get a marriage certificate. On the day they were set to leave, Liam gave me a grasshopper made of grass. In the days when we were still on good terms, he would use this to cheer me up whenever I was upset. I had collected a whole box of them, treasuring each one. But now, I didn't reach out to take it. Liam smiled, unfazed. "We're leaving today. Are you still upset?" In the past, I often got angry with him about Evelyn. When he and Evelyn would chat animatedly, I'd ask about it, but he'd always just say, "You wouldn't understand." I'd protest, "If I don't understand, you could teach me, couldn't you?" But Liam refused. "I teach enough at school. Do I have to work at home too?" I saved up to buy the books they discussed. Proust's Remembrance of Things Past. But after 3 pages, I was already nodding off. I couldn't fathom why they enjoyed reading such things. Liam would laugh, ruffling my hair, and hand me a grasshopper. "Here, go play." As if I were a child. I thought that was love. Years later, looking back, I realized he truly didn't love me. That's why he didn't want to expend the effort. A grasshopper could be made in a minute, but teaching me to read a book? Who knows how long that would take. But later, when I was alone, I read many books and discovered they weren't actually that difficult. So in this life, I won't cherish his grasshoppers anymore. The things I want to learn, I'll learn on my own. Seeing that I still wouldn't take it, Liam looked surprised. In the silence, a car horn sounded outside. The Kingsleys had arrived. Liam sighed and said, "Give it here, then." I was taken aback and asked, "What?" Liam said, "The sachet. The pillow would be inconvenient to carry, but you could bring a couple of sachets. I know you made plenty. Gina couldn't possibly use them all." I suddenly understood. He thought I was just being stubborn. I shook my head with amusement. "There aren't any left, not even one. I sold all the extras." My needlework was exceptionally good. My mother's family had a famous seamstress in their lineage, and she taught me the craft before she passed away. The sachets I made were actually quite popular. However, with all the farm work, I rarely had time to make them. The few I did make, I gave to him and son. Liam was still looking at me, seemingly unconvinced by my words. Just then, Eddie came in excitedly, pulling Evelyn along. "Dad, let's go quickly." Evelyn took out a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. "Look at you, so excited you've worked up a sweat." Liam picked him up. "Say goodbye to Mom." Eddie was still sulking and turned his head away from me. I stared at the handkerchief and suddenly said, "Give it back to me." Evelyn was taken aback. "What?" "The handkerchief I embroidered." "Give it back to me." Evelyn laughed with a hint of disdain. "It would indeed be laughable to bring this into the city. If you're so attached to it, you can have it back." Back then, when she had saved Eddie, I had nothing of value to offer, so I embroidered this handkerchief. Double-sided embroidery. Everyone who saw the butterfly on it said it looked lifelike. Eddie's face showed a look of disgust. This expression I had seen many times in this life and the last. I knew he was embarrassed by me. The Kingsley men had always been generous. If they borrowed something today, they'd be too embarrassed to ask for its return. Eddie would buy sweets for the children. Liam would pay tuition for students who couldn't afford school. Only I pinched every penny, always calculating with others. I would argue red-faced over selling an egg for an extra 10 pence. Evelyn was different. She spoke softly and never quarreled with anyone. She could use her entire salary to please Eddie, buying him things I would never get him. As time passed, Eddie inevitably grew closer to her. When I was unkind to Evelyn again, Liam began to speak up for her. Eddie had a weak stomach, and I forbade him from eating ice lollies. Evelyn bought him one in secret. Afterwards, he indeed had diarrhea so severe he nearly became dehydrated. Evelyn, filled with remorse, sobbed with reddened eyes, "It's all my fault." Just as I was about to lose my temper, Liam said, "Evelyn meant well. Don't blame her." Looking at it this way, they truly were of the same ilk. All my penny pinching seemed meaningless. Liam was born into wealth. Following him meant not having to worry about such things. No wonder he didn't want to bring me along. As Liam stepped out, he suddenly noticed that all the chickens and ducks in the yard had disappeared. "Where are all the poultry? Weren't they your prized possessions?" I did cherish them. The eggs could be sold, allowing us to afford more meat. But Liam didn't like them. His innate refinement made him unable to tolerate the stench of poultry droppings. He preferred a garden like Evelyn's, with flowers and plants. A grape arbor, where one could sit and enjoy tea in the cool shade during summer, and even make wine from the harvested grapes. So, when they had free time, they often chose to spend it there. I replied nonchalantly, "Sold them." I was leaving, so naturally, I had to sort everything out. Nobody in this village liked me, and I didn't want to stay here any longer. In my previous life, I refused to leave, fearing they wouldn't be able to find me. This time, I knew they wouldn't look for me, nor would they care about me. Liam smiled oddly, with a hint of sarcasm. "I see. I gave you so much money, you don't need to keep these anymore. £1,000,000 is enough for you to buy a flat in town." Under Eddie's urging, they finally got into the car. Eddie still didn't say goodbye to me. It seemed there was indeed nothing left to say. We probably wouldn't see each other again in this lifetime. Liam handed me a mobile phone. "You can call us if you want." In my previous life, he hadn't left me anything. This time, as I appeared indifferent, he became proactive. "But I won't call. And I won't take that money either. From now on, we'll go our separate ways, never to meet again. In this life, I don't want to have any connection with them anymore." As the convoy disappeared down the country lane, I gathered my belongings and took one last look at my home. Clara Lowe. "It's time for you to start anew." It was only later in my previous life that I learned that Evelyn looked like his mother's little daughter who had died in an accident. That's why Liam insisted on taking her with him, and why she smoothly married him. At that moment, I was overwhelmed with mixed emotions. How could someone be so fortunate? But why did I have to endure all the hardships alone? My parents passed away early too, leaving only a small plot of land. No matter how much I tilled that soil, nothing valuable would grow. I could only forage for matsutake in the woods, and do needlework here and there to barely make ends meet. After taking in Liam, one mouth became two. At first, he couldn't do anything, so I cleared out more space in the vegetable garden to grow herbs and sell them for extra money. The wind and sun wore me down day by day. Many people forgot that in my youth, I was known as the beauty of the village. Far more beautiful than Evelyn. But when I saw Evelyn again later, I did feel somewhat inferior. She had a trendy hairstyle, wore the latest fashion, and carried herself with grace. Like a well-bred lady who matched Liam Kingsley's status. She knew I had been to the school to find Eddie, and came to see me on purpose. When she saw me, she looked down on me with disdain. "If others knew Eddie had a mother like you, they would mock him. Liam only married you because he had no choice at the time. He never had a say in it from beginning to end." You should know your place and get out of a world you don't belong in. Eddie's attitude also confirmed her words. I recalled the look in Liam's eyes when he proposed to me. And there seemed to be no joy in them. And when he named our son Eddie, he said, "This place is too backward. I hope Eddie can be as free as if he were exploring the universe." I wondered, why did I rescue Liam without regard for my reputation? And give birth to Eddie at the risk of my life? Was it for them to trample on me over and over again? So after that, I never contacted them again. They also seemed to have completely forgotten about me. Until I was near death. In the end, it would have been better if we had never met again in this life. In my previous life, I exhausted all my energy and foolishness. This time, I want to live for myself properly. I was just an interlude in Liam Kingsley's life. He could also be my unexpected encounter. On his first night back at the Kingsley estate, Liam felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Lying on the soft, luxurious bed, he recalled the simple wooden cot and blackened mosquito net in that village. And those pesky insects. He never slept well there. It wasn't until Clara made herbal sachets that things improved. In his room now, the air conditioning was set to the perfect temperature, with a faint, subtle fragrance. It was his favorite scent from before. Liam thought he would sleep well tonight. But until midnight, he tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. What was missing? He wondered. Was it the herbal scent? It seemed so. The room's perfume now felt a bit cloying. Having barely slept, Liam felt rather groggy when he woke in the morning. The Kingsley family breakfast was lavish. Unsure of their preferences, both English and continental options were prepared. Eddie was poking at the fish on his plate with a fork. Liam's father noticed and spoke sternly, "Eddie, eat properly." Eddie felt a bit upset. His mother used to pick out the best bits for him. Evelyn, seeing this, wanted to help. But she was stopped. "You're not little anymore, do it yourself." Then he sighed softly, what kind of child did those country folk raise? Evelyn put down her fork upon hearing this. Eddie felt even more upset. Before, when his mother stopped Aunt Evelyn, she never listened. He keenly sensed that his grandfather didn't like him very much. Aunt Evelyn was different from before too. He realized he was starting to miss his mom a bit. Children have simple minds. After breakfast, Eddie said this to Liam. Liam thought for a moment and dialed Clara's number. But no one answered. Liam forced a smile, Mum might be busy with something else. "We'll try again later." But soon Eddie wouldn't have another chance to make a call. His schedule was packed full. Mr. Kingsley Sr. wasn't satisfied with the performance of his eldest grandson, feeling there was much for him to learn. By the end of the day, Eddie was exhausted both physically and mentally. He was sore all over from correcting his posture. After showering and lying in bed, he whined to his father. "Dad, my legs hurt. Can you rub them?" But Liam's massage wasn't very comfortable. He had to say, "Shall I call Evelyn?" Eddie shook his head. "She won't know how either. Only Mum knows how." Liam found himself in a difficult situation. Eddie's eyes lit up. "Why don't you tell me a story?" "It won't hurt if you tell me a story. When I used to have a fever, Mum would hold me and tell stories." Liam stroked his head. "What would you like to hear?" "Tell me the story of you and Mum." "Him and Clara?" It was actually quite an ordinary story. He was hiking when he accidentally fell off a cliff. Clara saved him and hired a car to take him back to Low Village, over 100 miles away. He had broken his leg and couldn't remember who he was. With nowhere else to go, he followed Clara back to her home. Clara named him George, grumbling all the while. But she diligently performed acupuncture on him daily, healing his leg. She was a skilled cook, able to make ordinary vegetables taste extraordinary. He was very grateful to her. He also thought Clara was kind-hearted. And quite attractive too. Later, he overheard people saying that by keeping him around, Clara was ruining her chances of marriage. Who would want to marry her now? But what use was he, a cripple who couldn't even carry a bucket of water? Clara got angry. "He's been through so much and you're still gossiping. He's an educated man, and speaks so well. I'm happy to take care of him." Liam was even more upset, so in a moment of impulse, he proposed to Clara. He regretted it as soon as he said it. He had a vague feeling that he would eventually leave this place. But seeing Clara's blushing cheeks, he suddenly didn't regret it anymore. He thought it would be fine. When the time came, he would take Clara with him. Later, Clara gave birth to Eddie, and her once slender figure and delicate skin were gone. She had noticeable stretch marks on her stomach. Clara was no longer the coy young girl she was before marriage. She would raise her voice to argue over a few pence. She had become no different from the other coarse women in the village. He began to tire of Clara. Then Evelyn entered his world. Sometimes he couldn't help but wish it had been Evelyn who had saved him. He felt Clara wasn't good at raising children either. She never paid attention to Eddie's schoolwork, only being strict with him when he caused trouble. In daily life, she spoiled him excessively. He knew Clara couldn't properly raise the eldest son and heir of the Kingsley family. Nor could she be a suitable madam of the Kingsley household. So he used his mother as an excuse and callously abandoned Clara, taking Evelyn with him. He thought Evelyn deserved to leave this rural area. But if it weren't for Eddie stirring up his distant memories this time, he might have almost forgotten that Clara was once a very likable girl. Thinking of this, his gaze became determined. He told Eddie, in a few days we'll go back to see her. But when they finally managed to squeeze out time to return, they couldn't find Clara. The villagers said that on the day they left, Clara had gone too. They thought she might have gone to City J to find them. The bank card and mobile phone he had left for Clara were neatly placed under the pillow. He suddenly realized that Clara loved him without expecting anything in return. Eddie became anxious. Where's Mummy? Why isn't she here? Liam seemed to have a moment of realization. He recalled Clara's reactions over the past few days and felt inexplicably uneasy. He thought Clara must have been truly upset this time. But he still comforted Eddie. She's angry. Don't worry though, she'll be back in a few days. When she does, you should say something nice to her. Eddie nodded vigorously. Clara had run away from home once before. That time, he had been chatting with Evelyn too late, and inadvertently fell asleep in her courtyard. Clara had cried and made a big scene. He had scolded her severely for the first time. How do you think others will view Evelyn if you carry on like this? Clara was stunned, the words hurting her more than a slap would have. So she turned and ran, staying in the hills for a night. But it wasn't long before she came back on her own. She approached him with a placating smile. I was wrong. I believe there's nothing between you and her. She mumbled softly, you didn't even try to comfort me or look for me. He smiled dismissively, I knew you'd come back on your own. This time would be the same. He left his number with the neighbors, telling them to call him if Clara returned. But he waited and waited, never receiving the call he was hoping for. After leaving the village, I traveled to many places before finally settling in a small fishing village. I rented a house and started doing embroidery as I pleased. The fishing village was much more open-minded than Low Village. People liked my embroidery work, and some even bought pieces to sell elsewhere. I was delighted. I began making my specialty sachets and herbal pillows, which sold even better. With the money I earned, I spent it all on myself. When I visited the city in my previous life, I heard city women say, a woman should treat herself well with the money she earns. I bought expensive herbs to make skincare products using my father's old family recipe. I couldn't afford those herbs before, nor did I think of using them for myself. Day by day, my skin became fair and smooth. I became a living advertisement for my products. The village women all came to me asking, you can't keep such good stuff to yourself. We'll buy it, we'll buy it. Gradually, I gained a reputation, and people from nearby villages and the county town came to seek me out. I earned enough to rent a larger courtyard as a workshop, and converted a few rooms into a bed and breakfast. I planted many flowers. When they bloomed, it was a beautiful sight of vibrant colors. My life kept getting better until one day, a guest arrived from City J. He said he was the vice president of a skincare brand under the Kingsley group and wanted to buy my patent. The person in front of me was chattering away. I felt a bit dazed. His features resembled Liam's. He was Matt Kingsley, Liam's cousin. I firmly refused. I didn't want to have any more connections with the Kingsley family. Matt persisted and ended up staying. Please, be kind. If I can't close this deal, my dad will cancel my credit card. He stayed for 2 weeks. Surprisingly, he began to pursue me. I told him with a straight face. I've brought death to my husband and child, haven't you heard? Back then, villagers were always trying to set me up. I blurted this out in desperation, which put an end to their attempts. Matt's eyes lit up. My birth chart is strong enough to counter that. Unable to drive him away, I let him stay. He was free labor, after all. One day, he stammered during a video call. Cousin, I still have some business here. I'll return once it's sorted. I accidentally walked into his camera view. The other end suddenly went silent. After a while, Liam's cold voice came through. Clara Lowe. You've been hard to find. The next day, I encountered Liam and the son. Eddie ran up to me and hugged me as soon as he saw me. Mom, we've finally found you. He used to be this affectionate only with Evelyn. Liam's expression remained cool. He looked at me confidently. It's been a year. Clara, I've been searching for you for a year. Has your anger subsided? Naturally, it was difficult for them to find me. They didn't even have a single photograph of me. Once, on my birthday, I wanted to go to the town to take a family portrait. None of them were willing. I gently pushed Eddie's hands away. You've got the wrong person. Eddie's eyes welled up with tears. Mom, don't you want me anymore? Liam grew irritated. He misses you every day. Sometimes he dreams of you and wakes up crying. Clara, he's your own child. How can you be so heartless? Heartless? When it comes to being heartless, how could I compare to them? In my previous life, the last time I saw them, they watched me flee in disgrace. Yet they didn't say a word in my defense. I've been given a second chance at life, and I intend to live it for myself. Matt suddenly interjected, Is she Clara? Liam, is this the Clara you've been looking for a year? He blurted out. How is that possible? She said her husband and son were both dead. Upon hearing this, Liam's face darkened. When Matt learned the whole story, he became possessive. So, does this mean you two are no longer meant to be? He patted Liam's shoulder. Cousin, you can't force what's not meant to be. Liam gave Matt a cold look. Do you still want your Porsche Panamera? Matt's expression became conflicted, but he gritted his teeth and said, A car can be bought anytime, but you can't get a wife back once she's gone. Liam paused, realizing the words had struck a nerve. Embarrassed and angry, he snapped, She's your cousin-in-law. Matt stubbornly retorted, Then why is she here alone? Enough. I finally intervened to stop this farce. Both of you, get out. Matt naturally refused, but Liam forcibly dragged him away. However, Liam deliberately left Eddie behind. Before leaving, he said, Wait for me. I'll be back. After he left, Eddie and I stared at each other awkwardly. He seemed quite happy, chattering away about the events of the past year. He talked about his heavy coursework, and how the slightest mistake would result in a caning. He mentioned that Evelyn was ignoring him, only focused on pleasing Mrs. Kingsley. He expressed how much he had missed me. It seemed he hadn't been having a good time. Deep down, he was still as selfish as in his previous life. In the past life, Eddie probably didn't have it easy either. But Liam had never thought of bringing him to see me. So he gradually adapted to life in the Kingsley household. In fact, Evelyn's choice wasn't wrong. Mrs. Kingsley's position was crucial. Liam felt immensely guilty towards her, and his father loved this wife dearly. Evelyn had risen to power this way in her previous life. She manipulated her, gradually softening both Liam and his father. Unfortunately, my departure in this life left Liam feeling unsettled, leading to the current situation. After all, he was my child, and I couldn't just send him away. Eddie excitedly said, I want Mom's homemade bread pudding. But I only ordered takeaway for him. His disappointment was evident. I simply said, if you don't eat, you'll have to wait hungry for your dad to pick you up. He reluctantly started eating. 2 days later, Liam returned, looking travel-worn. He seemed exhausted but somewhat excited. "Clara, I'm not leaving. We'll stay here as a family for a while. Just like old times." I didn't let him stay. I pushed Eddie towards him and ushered them both out the door. "Sorry, we're fully booked," I said. They waited outside for a long time, refusing to leave. In my previous life, I had done the same thing on the day they left. I had stood there for hours, unwilling to move even after their car had disappeared from sight. It used to always be me waiting for them, begging them. Now they finally knew what it felt like to wait for someone who would never come. But Liam still didn't leave. He found a place nearby and moved in. I regularly taught classes on making sachets. They would come to attend these classes. They learned with utmost seriousness how to make the sachets they had once scorned. When I occasionally looked up, I caught Liam staring at me, lost in thought. I knew why. I looked beautiful in my dress while making sachets. Otherwise, Matt wouldn't have fallen for a village woman older than him. Though his pursuit was also mixed with ulterior motives. I ignored them, treating them as mere strangers passing by. 2 weeks later, Evelyn stormed in. She was dressed in designer brands from head to toe, just like in her previous life. Upon seeing me, she paused for a moment before saying, "Clara, you've changed a lot." Then, with a hint of mockery, she added, "No wonder you've managed to keep Liam away from home and work." Liam happened to overhear this. "What nonsense are you talking about?" he asked. Evelyn put on her pitiful act. "Liam, if you don't go back, your mother's condition will worsen again." Liam's expression remained indifferent. "You can keep her company, can't you? Just focus on playing your role as Karina." Evelyn's actions over the past year had worn away Liam's affection for her. Evelyn's face darkened. Being Karina meant being Liam's sister. She could only pretend to be Karina when Mrs. Kingsley was having an episode. If Mrs. Kingsley's condition improved, she would become a complete outsider. Only by becoming Liam's wife and Eddie's mother could she permanently secure her place in the Kingsley family. It's hard to go from riches to rags. And Evelyn couldn't accept the thought of returning to having nothing. She turned to me and suddenly fell to her knees. Her voice was choked with emotion. "Clara, please let Liam go," she pleaded. "He had a huge row with his family because of you. He said he won't go back home if he can't bring you with him. His father's high blood pressure flared up from the anger. His mother can't handle the stress either. And Matt's been causing a fuss every day." I found it somewhat amusing. Hadn't I hidden far enough away? It was they who insisted on finding me here, and I couldn't get rid of them no matter what. They were the ones who disrupted my peaceful and content life. In the end, it turned out that I was the one not letting him go. I frowned at Liam. "If you don't leave, I'll sell the patent to Rainey Group." Liam was stunned. Rainey Group was Kingsley Group's biggest competitor. It was precisely because of the fierce competition that had reached a bottleneck that Kingsley Group wanted to seek new avenues. That's why they set their sights on herbal beauty treatments. And why they came all this way to find me. Liam knew I was serious. The time we had spent together was enough for him to see clearly that I had no feelings left for him. I barely cared for Eddie, let alone consider Kingsley Group's interests. Liam finally admitted defeat. He looked as if all the strength had been drained from his body. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt his back was no longer straight and proud. "Do you hate me that much?" he asked. I shook my head. I used to hate him, that's true. In my previous life, when I was dying, I thought if I ever met him again, I wouldn't save him. Not kicking him while he was down would be enough to honor our past marriage. But this past year, as I focused on my own life and became a better version of myself, I realized there was nothing left to hate. I hardly even thought about them. Because I no longer loved him. Hate isn't the opposite of love, forgetting is. Liam decided to leave. Eddie was crying and clinging to me, refusing to go. Perhaps he couldn't understand why his mother, who loved him most, suddenly didn't want him anymore. I still couldn't let go of what happened in my previous life. The scene where he didn't recognize me and had security escort me out was etched in my mind. He cried so hard he was almost hyperventilating. I softened a bit and hugged him. Go back with your dad, I said. You can come visit during the holidays. But he felt insecure. What if I come and you're gone again? I held out my little finger to pinky promise with him. I won't be. Once we make a pinky promise, it won't change. Liam looked at me. Thank you. Finally, he added, Clara, I won't give up. After returning home, Liam finally made up his mind to let Evelyn leave. Evelyn was stunned. What about Mrs. Kingsley? I've asked the doctor, her condition has improved significantly. I was the cause of her distress, but now I'll be there for her. Evelyn cried, her face streaked with tears. What am I supposed to do on my own? Liam's gaze was meaningful. People shouldn't covet things that don't belong to them. Evelyn regretted her choices. If she had known that Clara would become so alluring, captivating Liam to go back to her, she would have accepted Mrs. Kingsley as her godmother earlier. Mr. Kingsley Sr. had actually mentioned it once. But now regret was useless. At that time, she was more interested in becoming the young Mrs. Kingsley. Liam was truly determined. The Kingsley patriarch disliked Clara, and hoped Liam would marry someone of equal social standing and capability. For the first time, Liam defied his father. He knelt in the family chapel for 3 days and nights until he collapsed from exhaustion. The Kingsley family, unwilling to lose their most promising heir, who had been regained, had no choice but to acquiesce. When he woke up, Matt looked at him with a complex expression. Will she return to the Kingsley estate with you? Liam shook his head. Then you. Is it worth it? Liam spoke calmly. One must be prepared for everything. Over the past year, whenever he thought of Clara, he could only remember the good times. In fact, before Eddie was born, they had some wonderful days together. He depended on Clara. He had truly loved Clara. He drowned repeatedly in his memories, until he had to admit that he had fallen in love with Clara again. He didn't know if Clara would ever forgive him, but at least he could try. I stayed in that small fishing village. Whenever he had free time, Liam would bring Eddie to visit me. I no longer drove them away, but I didn't offer them any hospitality either. I wasn't sure if they loved me or the aura I now possessed. My heart had died in my previous life, unable to warm up again. Liam learned how to cook, trying to recreate the dishes I used to make for us. Eddie no longer found me annoying. Instead, he had many questions for me. Just like how he used to pester Evelyn before. He said he saw me on television, and his classmates all said his mom was beautiful. His unmasked, seemingly innocent vanity always made me feel conflicted. I couldn't help but recall his cruel demeanor in his previous life. Liam said Evelyn was gone, and I was the only lady of the Kingsley house now. Suddenly remembering my past life, I couldn't help but ask him, "Do you really think I can be a good madam of the Kingsley family?" He smiled. "Whatever you are, that's what the madam of the Kingsley family will be." He was truly intoxicating when he was in love. In my previous life, I had lived on just that little bit of sweetness for many, many years. Evelyn, accustomed to a life of luxury, could never return to that small village. I heard she was with a wealthy man in his 50s. She was stripped naked on the street by his wife. Then she drifted from one man to another. As for me, I continued living my life as usual, maintaining a lukewarm relationship with them. I never returned to the Kingsley house. But I still sold the patents to Kingsley Group, in the form of profit sharing. Money, who doesn't want to earn it? Liam never remarried. My photos hung in his home and office. Everyone in City J knew I was his only wife. Eddie often called me. And when I was busy and missed his calls, he didn't dare to get angry. Many years passed, and before Eddie's coming-of-age ceremony, they came together to pick me up. Eddie seemed uncertain, cautiously pleading with me. "Mom, we've respected your wishes all these years. But this is my coming of age, you know." I had a flashback to my previous life. For reasons I couldn't quite explain, I finally returned to City J with them. Because of my arrival, this celebration was even grander than in my previous life. Everyone rushed to toast me, the rarely seen lady of the Kingsley family. As memories of my past life overlapped with the present, I gave a faint smile. I always said, a woman should live her life for herself.